Okay, guys, today we'll talk about Docker and two more important announcements. First of all, the deadline of all our home tasks will be on 3rd of June. So don't wait up. Finish game, finish Python, and so your GitHub should be ready on the 3rd of June. Our next and the second important announcement that our next lesson will be about resumes, interviews, and your professional career. So to the next lesson, you should have your cameras on. So be prepared. Yeah. And we will be talking about HRs, resumes, interviews. So please be with cameras on. I put it to our chat and pinned it. Okay. Today we'll be talking about Docker. Yeah, so what is Docker and why it came to life, why it is so popular? So to put it simply, Docker is an environment to host your applications. We have GitHub. GitHub only hosts our code. GitHub is only text files and code. And Docker is application ready to launch. So we have operating system, usually Linux. We have Python libraries. We have Python environment to run Python, or maybe .NET if we want .NET, and libraries, environment, and of course we have our application. And all of this is a virtual machine, or in the other words, it is called container. So we have containers. Containers are virtual machines, virtual images. If you worked with Daemon tools, if you ever mounted your CDs for games, it is the same. That we have ISO image, and Docker is an image of machine ready to run. And Docker can be run on your local machine using Docker desktop, and it can be run in cloud, for example, Yandex Cloud. Да, нафига мне обратная связь незнакомых людей. Okay, and to begin with, we have several stages that we need to pass before we publish our Docker to the Yandex Cloud. Okay, and the first stage is Docker file. So in simple words, Docker file, it's just a text instructions, instructions about how to build a container, how to build image. Let's look at the two examples. Oh, again, I close Visual Studio. Okay. And we will notice that Docker container will be eating our resources when we launch it, but I think we can survive it. Yeah, let's look at this one Docker file. So Docker file can be created using Visual Studio Code. You usually don't write Docker file yourself. Please don't write it yourself. but you usually use some plugins from Visual Studio Code, or maybe from Visual Studio if you work with .NET. Okay, so I have a Flask app here. So the app is very simple. I use Flask, I have web server, and I have index page with parameters like host name, system version, IP address, and etc. And index page here is rendered using Flask. Yeah. And so I need to tell Docker how to build it. And here are the instructions in Docker file. We need Python 3.11, but I think we can also use 3.9, whatever. We have Python. We have maintainer. Maybe it can be your email. Okay, but maintainer is not necessary. So we copy everything in our app directory. We copy everything to our working directory. Then we run pip install. So what we install, how do you think? We install Flask, of course, only Flask, but requirements can be big, and we may install everything. So we install Flask, and then we expose our port 8080 of the container, expose it to the Docker host, and we use Python to run app.p. Take a look at another Docker file. Usually you don't write it everything yourself. Usually Visual Studio Code helps you to create Docker file. Or anyway, you can work in IntelliJ IDEA, in JetBrains, in anything. All of these environments work with Docker file. So take a look at this one about .NET Docker file. It's actually the same. So why we expose here? Anyway, okay, we took, instead of Python, we are downloading ASP.NET, and we are downloading SDK. We also have working directories, app and src, but here we run some .NET commands. We run .NET build on our CS proj, which builds our project, and we run .NET publish on our CS proj to publish it to web server, and we run .NET on our build JL at the final. Okay, it is .NET Core, of course. So anyway, this container also using Linux system. And the creation of it is so simple. Just when you are creating new project, you put on the checkbox here, enable Docker, and that's it. For example, take a look of .NET Core, enable Docker, Linux, HTTPS, and create. And here we will see some another Docker file example. It uses ASP.NET Core 3.1 SDK. But anyway, the other lines are the same: .NET Build, .NET Publish, and .NET Run. Okay, but the libraries are different. So here we use Python. So we have Docker file. The next step is building an image. So a Docker file is just a text. So before we run the container, we need to build image. The container is a running machine, and the image is just an image that, okay, the container uses the image to run the virtual machine, and image just an image. It can be, the metaphor is, how it is, the virtual disk. Okay, image can be imagined like a virtual disk with everything prepared to launch in Docker. The operating system, Python, and then everything. So we use Docker build. We just press here. Of course, we can build it on the console, but it's better to use Visual Studio. Anyway, we will see the console output here. Build will be failed because Docker now is not running. Yeah, I need to relaunch it. And as you see, I has only 8 gigabytes of memory on my laptop, and Docker will be eating a lot, especially Windows substitute for Linux. Emulating Linux on Windows is hard. Okay, we should wait for it. Maybe I need to kill my Chrome browser. For now, at least. Okay, while Docker is running, you can see my system is suffering because it has a lot of memory. Starting. Okay, I think we will build image. We will run it. And then we will push image to cloud, and then I will exit Docker desktop because my memory will be eaten. Let's wait a little bit while it is running. Okay, now we have it. So here's a list of images, and so now we can run build an image. Build, we are calling image Python doc with tag latest. Actually, tags in Docker are very important. We will see it later. Using tags, you can create a copy of an image and push it to Docker Hub. Using tag, you can create a copy of an image and push it to Yandex Cloud. Yeah, push. So now we are just running build. Okay. And you can see the console output here. So we have Docker build command, which uses Docker file and adding image Python doc. Okay, we are downloading Python from internet. We are running pip install now. Flask. Okay. And now it is done. Okay, downloaded Python. It installed Flask in the image. And now everything is ready to be launched. And now we are done with Docker file for today. So what should the app do? It should output index HTML at the 8080 port. So let's run this container. We are pressing run, and we don't oh, okay, let's run it without any settings and see the result. Okay, the container is running. Pedantic Williams. The container is running, and as you see, this port 8080 is inside the container. It is inside the Docker machine. So we try to open 8080 on our machine on localhost, and this IP address is only inside Docker. It has own subsystem of network of IP addresses. Let's click it. Maybe we should use another browser, not memory consuming like Edge. Okay, Chrome is opened anyway. And we don't see anything. We don't see anything because what do you think is happening? You can see it on the ports where it is containers. Okay, you can see it on the ports tab here. So we have container with port 8080, but it isn't mapped to any port of our local machine. So we have Docker desktop. It's like its own computer, Docker desktop, own server. And we need to redirect traffic from our local notebook to Docker desktop, to Docker servers. So if you don't have ports, it won't be done. So that's why we stop it. And as you see, other containers has ports. So let's do it when running image. So we run it, but here we publish some port like 31200. And please don't store in Docker sensitive files, sensitive passwords. Don't do like this, like password. Don't do this any... В общем, никогда так не делайте. Никогда не храните пароли прямо в коде. Для этого у контейнеров есть специальные штуки environment variables. Их можно легко получить с помощью питона. Вот. Окей, let's run it.
Вопрос, ты мне показываешь? Ну? Что ну? Идет. Я слышу.
Так, выключил звук у Влада. Okay, now we have another container name. And it has ports exposed. So when we press it, now we have the result. So we have IP address in Docker, container host name, Python version, and Linux description. As you see, it is some special version with Microsoft Windows subsystem for Linux and user agent of our browser. Okay. It is running on our local machine. Now let's stop it and publish it to Yandex and to Docker Hub. So to begin is, what is Docker push and Docker Hub? Yeah, Docker run we saw and Docker Hub. So Docker Hub is like a collection of images. It contains images, and you can publish image to your Docker Hub. As you see, I have images from previous groups, and share it. So that's why you don't need to store your data, because this image can be shared and anyone can get access to your code. By the way, what's inside the image? What's inside the container? If we will see the files, where it is, images, files, okay, layers. Yeah, so inside we will see Linux file system. Anyway, so we have Python doc here. How we will put it to our hub? We have username Ivan Top, for example. So that's where we need Docker tag. We do Docker tag our Python doc to Python Docker 3. Okay, we tag the image. And what is happening when we do tagging? We create a copy of our image. As you see, they have the same control sums here. They are equivalent. So, but this image can be published to Docker Hub. If you try just to push your Python doc. Let's try it. Okay, it is thinking that it refers to some library Python doc. So it's not good, and that's why we need tags. Tags help us to define where to push images. Okay, now we push to I1 top. The same is with Yandex Cloud. We also use tags. And the only thing that for Yandex Cloud, we need to remember our cloud registry name. So I have cloud registry about Docker here, not object storage. It is container registry. So here is the ID of container registry. So now I do the same. Where is my console? Yeah, Docker tag this Python doc container registry.yandex, this registry name, and now we name it, for example, Python 3. So now I can push it to Yandex. As you see, I'm already authorized at Yandex Cloud Console. I did Yandex init. By the way, maybe I didn't send the link. I didn't send the link. Wait a little bit. Oh, okay. Now I pushed everything and I can exit the Docker desktop. Let's see the result. As you can see, we have Docker desktop, but the main consumer is Windows subsystem for Linux. VMM is Windows subsystem for Linux, and it is eating like all of our memory. So I will stop Windows subsystem now, shut down it, and now I will exit Docker desktop, quit. So now my memory is free. Okay. And the link about Yandex, yeah. So when I was, how do you think how I researched this Docker knowledge that I have? Everything is in your chat actually, except Yandex console maybe, yeah. So everything is here. I just read the documentation from Docker. I just read the documentation from Yandex. No secret ingredient. So I read documentation, how to build container. I didn't read documentation how to write Docker file because Visual Studio did it for me. So I don't write Docker files myself. Visual Studio does it for me. So after you have Docker file, you can build, you can run, you can push. It is very easy using console. So, okay. And the instruction about Yandex Cloud. Okay, we have now image. We have now image. Okay, now we go to our virtual machines, to the console. I will stop this one. This was a machine for previous group. And now we will recreate a new virtual machine. It will be. So before we start with virtual machine, we will go to container registry. We have Python 3 here. So here is our image. It is uploaded just like now, and it is LLM. We don't have name like Python Docker here. So yeah, it is just called Python 3. Okay. So now we have a virtual machine. Let's run another machine, Python 3. And here we choose our container. We have our Python 3 and we have the latest image that was uploaded right now. Okay, we have no environment variables here. And do we have IP addresses? Anyway, I will delete it later. But here is difficult that we need to have some SSH key. Okay, SSH online chain. It is for using SSH console, but we don't need it, so we just generate something random and don't save the private key. So if you use it in production, don't do it, because if you don't remember your SSH key, you won't be able to use console on your machine. Okay, create. So this is a machine with Linux, and it will be running our Docker container. Let's wait a little bit while it is creating. So as you see, yeah, now we are deploying in Yandex Cloud and we are happy. As you see, the Docker is not very hard. So we have Docker file. Usually it is created by our environment, Visual Studio Code or any development environment that you use. We have Docker file, we can build images, then we can run images on our local machine using Docker Desktop, and don't forget about ports. Or we can publish images to Docker Hub or to some cloud to run them on cloud machines. And using Docker Hub, you can share image to your colleagues, to your friends. But don't forget that these Docker Hub images are public. They can be downloaded by anyone. So don't store anything sensitive on Docker Hub, because anyone can do Docker pull your repository and have access to your code and remember about it. So our machine is running. Yeah, now we have public IP address here. And of course it isn't working. But why? Why do you think it isn't working? Because we exposed port 8080 here, and we need to add it to the address. Now we are set. You can open it in your browser now. It will be available for like next 20 minutes and then deleted. So this link can be opened by anyone. It is public in the internet with IP address. So it's an actual Linux machine in Yandex Cloud that is using Python, our Python 3 container. It is running Python 11 on Linux, generic. And it is hosting our app. So we can have a very complex app with a lot of Python libraries, with SQL Server maybe. But all of this can be just put to requirements. If we, for example, will have a SQL server, then we will put instructions to Docker file, not only to run Python, but also to run some SQL how it is called in Linux, SQL program, SQL server, anyway. So now we have working machine. That's how Docker looks. So now you can add to your resume that you are familiar with Docker, guys. And it's a very cool technique, and it is very popular now because you are usually you are developing on your local computer. In any IT company, you are developing on your local computer. Then you build image and you publish it. For example, in my company, we have Docker servers, and we can publish to our company Docker and run it in our local environment. So it's very useful. So that's it about Docker. It's not very hard as we thought, but the key feature is that it eats a lot of memory if running on Windows. If you have Mac, maybe you are lucky because Macs are better with Docker than Windows. But on Windows we have memory eaten. Okay. That's it, folks. So please write to a chat how you feel now about Docker. Anyone? Chat messages? No? Okay. Yeah, good. So we have Docker file, we have image, we can then run container on our local machine using desktop and map container ports to our local machine ports. And then we can publish it to Docker Hub or publish it to Yandex Cloud or Amazon Cloud or Google Cloud, anywhere. And very useful technique. We don't, as you see, we don't do anything with files. We don't copy Python anywhere. We don't use Git commands. So we use only Docker commands. It's very useful. So we have everything to launch our app. We have Python, we have operating system, we have all libraries, and we just can Docker push, Docker run, and we have our app running in the cloud. So it's very useful.